This is the last day of our acquaintance. I will meet you later in somebody's office. I'll talk, but you won't listen to me. Oh, I know what your answer will be. Yeah. See, I know you don't love me anymore. Oh, you used to hold my hand when the plane took off. 2 years ago, there just seemed so much more. And I don't know what happened to our love. Today's the day our friendship has been stained. And we will meet later to finalize the details. 2 years ago, that seed was planted. Since then you have taken me for granted. Well, let me tell you that you were no life back to me. I drown in pain and misery.
right, good morning, good morning. That song is about divorce, but seems appropriate today because you all are divorcing me, all right, after this next week. So, you know, it's not me, it's you that are leaving, okay? I'm not the one that wants the semester to end, it's you. So anyway, before I run out of time at the end of class, let me start by just saying a profound and deep thank you for whatever reason you registered for this course. Maybe it was just purely random or just the only section or whatever. You know, maybe signing up for my class had absolutely nothing to do with it, but still thank you for selecting this class with me. I truly hope to be able to stay in some sort of touch with you all, and you know where to find me and how to find me, and I'm not going to chase and can't chase and wouldn't chase you all down. I hope to see you in another section of something with me. It's probably, if you haven't already taken it, probably the only likely thing is sensation of perception. I don't think any of you will go back and take intro psych again. So, you know, those three classes, this of course, are my regulars. I sometimes teach personality, but I haven't for a few years, and I don't see it coming up on my radar. And I don't teach any upper division stuff, so it's all, you know, 1,000, 2,000 for me. So you guys go on and do more great things, and then someday I'll be at your graduation ceremony. I'm one of the only faculty that goes. There's like 12 of us there out of like 6,000 faculty. And I'm not exaggerating sometimes. One time I was there and I counted there were 12 other faculty, well, me, including me, there was 12 faculty there. So look for me. I will hopefully be at your graduation ceremony off to the left of the stage, and I usually go down to the floor and fist bump and high five everybody that comes across. So I hope you'll hit me back. And I hope you'll hit me back, you know, before then. I'm always here. I'm always hopeful and helpful and willing to be of assistance to you if I can in any way that I can. And my philosophy about teaching classes is this. You know, you signed up for this. I'm your professor this semester, but this sounds maybe, you know, I don't know. Anyway, for what it sounds like, if you want me to be, I'll be your professor for life. And I'd be happy to stay in touch with you one way or another. Now you guys are becoming really, really hard to stay in touch with because you have rejected Facebook. I have, well, you know, I don't know. I have Facebook friends that go all the way back to when I started teaching. Before Facebook existed, people found me there. And you guys don't do Facebook anymore, and there's no substitute. Is there? I mean, there's no like lasting way for you guys to network with people in like, I don't know, like TikTok and Instagram. You know, those are just about like photos and reels and stuff, and it's not about like updates or people don't, I don't know. So anyway, email still exists. It's another archaic thing, but one way or another, I hope you'll find a way to stay in touch with me if you wish to. All right? I hope I have time at the end to say goodbye. But anyway, thank you for being here today, this one final day. Do you guys have any questions for me right now? Come on, last day. Give me a question. Throw me a bone. Come on. 45 times I stood here and asked you if you have any questions. Yes.
What was your favorite lesson this semester?
Oh my God, what was my favorite lesson this semester? This one. The last one, the one before that, before that, there's only, I told you there was one chapter I hate. And I think I told you which chapter it was. I won't reveal it again. Yeah. And even there, there's moments that I like teaching that chapter. So anyway, but gosh, for real, do I have a favorite? I don't know. How about you?
I liked the sleep ones, and then the
Covered sleep or emotions?
micro-emotions.
Oh, micro emotions. Okay, all right. Yeah, that's a fun one too. I enjoy that, and I ran out of time as always talking about that stuff. So Paul Ekman and micro expressions and detection of deception, stuff like that. I love that. I love talking about HM because I, got to know Jacopo and SA. So that's always a favorite and fun for me. I do like talking about what I talked about the other day. Of course, I love talking about Zimbardo stuff and the time perspective stuff. And in fact, I open with just another another moment about that in just a moment. Anybody else want to share what was your favorite topics? I mean, you guys all just submitted you just submitted a 5-minute presentation about your favorite thing. So yeah.
I really liked when we had the guest speaker and we were learning about language in the.
Oh yeah, that was great. Yeah, when Karen Brackey was here. Yeah. Almost forgot about that. Thanks. Yeah, that was a fun. Yeah, that was my first time to be. I told you guys that was my first time. I've talked to her in person. You know what I mean? That was the first time we ever co-taught, or I've ever sat in. I never sat in one of her classes. She never sat in one of mine. She's a role model for me, and I was nervous. I told you I was nervous because I totally respect her, and I always think she's way up here, and I'm way down here. So it's what is she gonna think of? So anyway, she's great. Thanks for sharing that. All right. Well, I have kind of a lot I want to do in this last day. If you guys don't mind me plugging some more into your heads, just one last topic, one last thing. Well, two last topics. So I'm not going to pull up the PowerPoint to share some of the last things I wanted to share about time perspective therapy. But I just want to get I mean, it can be a full-on therapy, as that book I passed around, fully documents, for treatment of PTSD in particular, anxiety, depression as well. And again, for those of you that will touch upon in your own lives, whether professionally or personally, keep that book in mind, keep that topic in mind. It didn't get a heck of a lot of traction, and I'll tell you in a second why, and I anticipate that it's not going to, for sad reasons. I think it's awesome. It was groundbreaking, and it's a drug-free psychotherapy. It's like Rick Sword would say, it's sometimes the what we sometimes call common sense, or sometimes the best things are hidden in plain sight. And what's brilliant about that therapy is just how effective it was working for them and for people that they were doing the documenting and collecting data on. And again, how just it's simple for a therapist to use. It's simple for the client. It's enjoyable for both. And in a category of therapy that's really hard and stubborn for therapists. I mentioned it. Almost nothing has a higher rate of mortality than clients with PTSD. And accompanied by, when it's accompanied with depression especially. And I mean mortality in both the literal and in the clinical term. Clinically they call it mortality when a patient, for whatever reason, doesn't return for continuing therapy. Now, that can be just them dropping out, insurance, a million, life reasons why they don't come back. But of course, it includes literally mortality. And, suicidality is highest among that population of mental illness sufferers. So the Swords had this, for years they had this practice on Maui, and guess what their mortality rate was? Fucking zero. Zero. That's unheard of. Okay, and I'm not talking about the literal, death mortality rate. I'm talking about clients who stopped coming to them. Nobody dropped out. Nobody. I mean, that doesn't happen. I don't have no idea what an average rate would be. I couldn't even speculate, but I would not be surprised if it's I would assume it's in the double digits, well and deep into the double digits, I bet. Okay? It would have been astonishing enough if just they didn't have any suicide, if that literally was the measure that they were saying, okay? So it's a very effective therapy and treatment. So again, keep that in mind if you're both personally if that touches upon your personal life, yourself, other loved ones close to you, many of you might go into therapy, become therapists of some sort. Keep that in mind as a tool to put in your utility belt. Now, why won't it get much traction? Almost immediately after the book came out, written by Rick and his wife Rose and Phil, I told you Rick contracted esophageal cancer and died 14 months later. So the main proponent of that, he was the main voice of that, passed away. Rose and Phil did their best to, keep it going, and they wrote a few. I meant to bring in bragging rights. I meant to bring in two of the subsequent books that they wrote. They wrote a book. Rose and Phil wrote 2 books on living and loving better, using that the ideas of time perspective theory, and one about grieving. That one just came out, and I haven't had a chance to read it yet. I just got it like a few weeks ago. I can't think of the title. Shoot, I meant to bring them in. They're on my desk at home. And I was really going to brag about the Living and Loving Better book because on the back cover, there's a blurb from me. I'm one of the, how there's like author recommendations or whatever. Like they asked me to write one. So anyway, and the book's been translated in multiple languages, and I came across the Italian one, and they translated me into Italian. I'm like, oh, I didn't know I speak fluent Italian. So anyway, you can look for those 2 books as well. So yeah, Rick passed away, so that they lost a major proponent, and now that Phil's died, so it's now on Rose's shoulders. And Rose just told me since Phil died, I contacted her, and she said she's just she needs to step away into for the last 5 or 10 years, about 10 years now that's been on their plate. She's been working so hard on that kind of stuff, and then she's grieving the loss. She's still grieving the loss of her love of her life husband, and now she had a deep relationship with Phil, and so she said she's turning to fiction. So she's going to be. I'm looking forward to the books that she's going to author. She's such a brilliant person and wonderful, just amazing. So anyway, I fear that this time cure is going to kind of lose its footing, so to speak. But I'm still going to talk about it, still promote it. So anyway, the last thing I was going to say about that presentation I gave you, I didn't get to the very end of it, and that was partly modified. I first created that PowerPoint to a presentation I gave in a couple of different contexts to other faculty. I was trying to tell other faculty how to use time perspective theory in their teaching. And one of the main things I kind of wanted to point out to faculty is that, look, now that you all know about the, past, present, future, and, how future-oriented, university people are, professors and students, it was like I was trying to ring a warning bell that, look, you and they are super high future-oriented people. And this generation is scared to fucking death of the future. I mean, the world is literally on goddamn fire for you all. Just take climate crisis alone. I mean, that is screamingly horrifying. Okay, more so for now than ever before. It was so you guys just have that on top of every other and then along hey, how's that going for you? How would you like a pandemic to just ruin your life for 4 years? And then as soon as the pandemic ended, Russia started wanting to get the Soviet Union back together, and nuclear war all of a sudden was. So the economy, the divisiveness, on and on and on. Okay. The rising, mental issues that in your age. So I don't know. I just was telling my colleagues they're future oriented, so they're terrified of the future. Leave them alone. Relax a little bit on them. Be mindful of that. We got a job to do. We're here to prepare you for your futures, but a bunch of future oriented people, telling a bunch of future oriented people to be more future oriented, teach them a little bit how to enjoy the now. Give them time to enjoy the now. Be present with them now. Let them encourage them to be present with each other. They're less and less present physically. You know, the digital things have taken over all of us, and we do a lot more. You know, we're just not. You know, sometimes we're just not. Yeah. So just be mindful of your present. Okay. So you know that same lesson applies not just to my colleagues, but to you too. I mean, be aware that you're future oriented, and it's okay that you're scared about your future. You have every goddamn reason to be scared of your future. How's that for me telling you what to be afraid of? But anyway, so keep working towards that future, but stay in the present while you're doing it. And be mindful of when, I just had this conversation after class the other day, you might have found when you did that inventory that, wow, you know, I'm not as future oriented as he keeps telling me I am. My score was a little bit on the low side. Reflect on that. Maybe it's because of the reasons I just told you. Maybe it's just sometimes too anxiety provoking to always be thinking about the future. Okay, that's okay. So then figure out how you can best work your future. Don't get fatalistic. Don't let like a fear event of the future turn into a fatalism in the now, right? You learned about how that's dangerous and toxic to be fatalistic now, okay? You are every bit, if not more capable than you realize. You are more talented, more intelligent, more motivated, more promising, more every positive word I can think of than you might be believing, okay? Be aware of the imposter syndrome. Be aware when you got that own little self voice telling you you're not good enough, you won't ever be good enough, or you're not right for this, or the future's too horrible. Just knock that off your shoulder and believe in yourself more than you sometimes allow yourself to, okay? And recognize when you might be spinning your wheels in the now. Recognize when you get in patterns where it's like, I'm wasting time. I'm, this scrolling or whatever you're doing, or, you got work to do. Don't be too thinking about the future, but don't give up on the future either. And just recognize when you might be like, okay, I could use a little bit of motivation. Find your motivation, reach out. That's another one of my slogans, reach out. That means reach out to other people who need your help and assistance. Be aware, be cognizant of your friends and your other people in your life, pay more attention to them. Recognize that we're all unique and we're all individuals. We're all fucking along or making up life as it comes. And, even though we might all be experiencing the exact same thing, nobody's experiencing the exact same thing. Nobody has the same mindset that you do. Nobody's experiencing the now or the present situation exactly like you assume maybe they are. And sometimes people around you need you to reach out to them, and just as often you need to reach out to get reached out back to. So, reach out when you can give it and when you need it. All right, that's my parting advice for you. Okay, and try to think about it in terms of that time perspective theory. Okay, I think that's really gold stuff. I think it's really handy, easy to use gold stuff. I didn't even talk about the past. You can also think about your past. You do think negatively about the past. There's things you can do to shape how you think, okay? Look for the ways that can shape how you're, dealing with the past. If and when you have trauma, and you will have trauma in your life, don't let it become your only past, your past negative, okay? Recognize, I got control over how I think about the past now. It's really largely about the present. That little evaporating pocket of time that maybe doesn't even exist, the present, okay? Be mindful of your present. Enjoy it when you can, not too much. Get the wheels spinning instead of swirling, and modify your thinking about the past and be mindful about how you're thinking about the future. Okay, that's enough. I got to go on to talk about depression now, okay? I got mixed feelings about, I always got mixed, I got to just figure out a better thing to do on the last day than this conversation and what I'm going to share with you. So forgive me if you took intro with me, you experienced this in intro. How many did take intro with me? Did any of you have intro psych with me? Okay, none of you experienced this then. All right, so good. This isn't a repeat then. I'm going to talk about depression by sharing clips from this old as balls documentary about Prozac. Okay, everybody knows about Prozac, I assume. Prozac is a selective serotonin reuptake inhibitor, and it came out in the 80s. And this is an episode of PBS Frontline. If you're not familiar with that series, which is still around today, it's very cutting edge, and it's a about an hour long documentary series that's like cutting edge, something that's front news, front line at the moment. So by the mid late 90s when this came out, I think 96 when this came out. So it's old, 1996. I get it, but. Prozac was like, bubbled up, and it was on everybody, it was on people's minds, literally in people's minds. And this documentary, really quickly, I want to introduce it, and I'm just going to show you bits and pieces of it, and I encourage you to watch the whole thing on your own. It centers around a psychologist, a horrible psychologist. Sadly, one of the few psychologists in this, the main psychologist in this, is a frickin' horrible psychologist. His name's Dr. Jim Goodwin. And he was a practicing, a private practice clinician in the town of Wenatchee, Washington State. And he got notorious and drew national attention because he went on the talk show circuits at the time. He was on Oprah and all the daytime, talk shows. And he got labeled as the Pied Piper of Prozac because he was so literally high on Prozac, maybe literally, that he diagnosed every single, by his own admission, I say this in the thing, he diagnosed every one of his 750 or so clients, everybody that walked in the door, he said, you have depression. Everyone. He diagnosed every single one with depression and recommended that they get on Prozac and come back to him for his brand of cognitive therapy. Being a psychologist, he couldn't prescribe it himself. So that was his practice. So, you go get the Prozac and then you come back and do the therapy with him. So every single person who walked in his door, okay? That's just stupid. That's just absolutely immoral and unethical and so I just want to just be mindful and just say, the psychologist that's running throughout this is ridiculous, okay? Not a role model, okay? Yet he has some good points. Then you're going to meet his archenemy, who is a psychiatrist who ironically could prescribe medication, who's nationally famous for being absolutely anti-medication. So he's in the other extreme direction, saying there's no place really for psychotherapy, medical psychotherapy. That's pretty absurd. Okay, and then you'll meet some other people that are like, Anyway, so I'm going to do this annoying thing where I show you bits and pieces of it. And I should have had this up there. This is Jim Goodwin with, you'll see maybe this clip if we get to it, of him doing his cognitive therapy with one of his clients who obviously agreed to be on camera. Okay? So let's meet him.
Prozac didn't come into the picture until about 1988, 89. They hadn't used it very much at that point in time in the military, but we tried it, and I'll tell you, after being on it for about 2 to 3 weeks, I popped out of the depression, and it was real enlightenment. For me, it was like walking around like this for my whole life, and really not knowing that I was nearsighted. I mean, really. I mean, no one had ever offered me glasses, and then all of a sudden, here comes somebody that says, okay, now try these on, try this Prozac on. And I tried it on, and for the first time in my life, I went, whoa, is this the way reality really is?
With his sight restored, Dr. Jim Goodwin has had a vision. A town liberated from depression by Prozac. But he's drawn to Wenatchee, the medication's harshest critic, a man not only against Prozac, but against all psychiatric drugs, psychiatrist Peter Bregan.
Okay, I think I missed a segment, but anyway, I kind of gave you a good enough introduction to him. Now, by the way, I forgot to say that, like, one of the reasons I'm still talking about this and still showing this is, has Prozac gone away? It's still controversial. It's still used highly. And it's it's now it's not the only option as a selective serotonin reuptake inhibitor. There's other options out there, but it's still, I believe, the #1 prescribed medication for depression, and then for other things. It's still controversial. And I want to also add, like, throughout today, I'm going to probably sound like I'm on the Peter Breggin side of like anti-medication. Okay, I'm not. But I'm not on, I'm not on the Goodwin bandwagon. I don't think it's for everyone. I don't think it's, we way too readily recommend and prescribe medications like this and others. I'm really high on, like, time cure kind of, therapies rather than chemical ones. Okay, that's just, I'll admit that's a bias of mine, but I am not. I promise you, not anti. There are people in the room that may very well be on Prozac or Prozac-like drugs or other substances, and I absolutely promise you I'm not judgmental or saying that that's faulty or wrong. I promise you that's not the case. All right, and maybe some of you sadly will go on to need things like that, and you all have people probably. Anyway, so this is very prevalent. This is this documentary could be today. That's basically what I'm trying to say. All right, so there was another introduction to Goodwin that I kind of missed, but I kind of gave you a good enough summary of him. So.
Never have had depression in the first place. I should never have to take.
So we'll come back to Peter Breggin, who we just got introduced to. I kind of bop around in this, so it's kind of awkward how I do this. So anyway, here's the example of him doing his brand of cognitive therapy with a patient. Listen carefully to him, and then I'm going to say something kind of judgmental about his brand of therapy.
Never do this. Have you been shooting all over yourself for a number of years?
Yeah.
Sure you have. You've been shooting all over yourself. But not only have you been shooting all over yourself, you've been doing something even worse, Sandy. You've been, and I don't want to share this with the rest of the world, but you've been masturbating a lot.
I have?
Yes, you have. You've been masturbating all
Gee,
over the
I
place.
wish.
Well, no, Sandy, no, you have. You've been masturbating. What's masturbating? All right, let's say A. What's
mustard? Yeah.
let's say A. Let's say A. I've got $11. My B is I like to have at least 12. Now I'm going to begin to masturbate. Now watch what happens to my body. Here I am. I'm walking down the street. I've got $11 in my pocket. But now instead of I like to have at least 12, now it's I must have at least 12. I must.
Getting a little red.
Okay, now.
You're foaming at the
okay,
mouth.
I'm foaming at the mouth. Lots of people in our society have used medicine to change the state of the human existence. There must be a reason why we eat so much candy, why we take so much alcohol, why we drink so much coffee, why we use so many mind-altering medicines. There must be a reason why we eat so much chocolate. Why do we have to keep altering? Because this inherently is just as fallible as my eyes might be. My eyes have glasses on them, just as fallible as my teeth are. My teeth have fillings on them, just as fallible as my knee. I'm a disabled vet. I wear a brace on my knee every once in a while. I'm a 20th century man. And if my brain needs something to help me function better, why not use it? I have seen hundreds and hundreds of people make incredible changes in their lives using this medicine as an adjunct along with the therapy. I take the medicine myself. I've been through it myself. If my children needed it, I would have no fear, or if my wife did, in suggesting that they take it. It's a medicine that probably is less toxic than salt.
Some good points there. Some good points, very good points. His analogy about glasses and, substances that we take to modify the way we feel are good points, good points. There's some decent-ish points about his brand of therapy. As we, I only get to see what you see. I have no idea if this is a representative sample of his therapy, but two flags, jump out at me, not just the extreme, how animated he gets or almost aggressive, but it makes me wonder how good a listener he is. He keeps interrupting her. That doesn't seem like a good therapist to me. But I want you all to be very cognizant, not just of therapy situations, but in everyday life, when somebody's talking to you like you're a little tiny child. It's so simple. Come on. As soon as someone's voice goes like that, you're being gaslit, all right? You're an adult. Don't let somebody, talk to you like you're an infant. And that's what he does over and over in this. His voice gets really, come on, it's like really simple. It's less dangerous than salt. It's like, morning, morning, morning. Okay, I think we got Peter Bregan next. Yes. Okay, so this is Peter Bregan, psychiatrist, major advocate against psychiatric medication. He's going to go on and make some very good, valid points.
Drawn to Wenatchee, the medication's harshest critic, a man not only against Prozac, but against all psychiatric drugs. Psychiatrist Peter Bregan.
Well, we have here a kind of microcosm of America right now. America has been pushed more and more by the psychiatrists of the country and by the drug companies of the country to turn to medication. Eli Lilly put on a giant campaign and still has a giant campaign going on in this country selling the idea of depression and drugs to America. Well, Wenatchee has bought the campaign. And so we see here a microcosm of what it looks like if you really take seriously the kind of propaganda that's been handed out in America. Now, the fact that we have an extremist psychologist who has now admitted that he gives everyone in his practice the same drug and gives everyone the same therapy basically just shows how you can exaggerate the basic themes that are already going on in America. Listen to me, the authority. I'll tell you what's the matter. I'll rescue you. I'll give you the quick fix solution, the American way.
I should never have had...
So we heard that already. Okay.
Prozac is...
Oh, wait, that I did want to hear. Okay.
Prozac is supposed to be a whole new generation of antidepressants. It blocks the removal of a particular brain chemical called serotonin from the brain connections. Serotonin is like a spark between brain cells. There's maybe 100 similar kinds of sparks with different names. And the idea behind it is to make the sparks stay longer and more active in the brain. And so the removal is blocked by Prozac, the removal of the serotonin. Basically, you're jazzing up one of the neurotransmitters of the brain. Now, the argument is that it's selective. It's called a selective serotonin reuptake inhibitor, an SSRI, a selective serotonin reuptake inhibitor. And that's the sales pitch, that this is very selective. But the theory makes very little sense. It's too global. And in addition, when you try to do something to the brain, like jack up a neurotransmitter system, you're not just affecting that system. The other neurotransmitters react. The brain has at least 3 known compensatory mechanisms whereby it tries to shut down the very effect that the drug is trying to produce. You get this complicated hodgepodge of interactions that we can't even begin to understand. So theoretically, we don't really know what we're doing when we dump junk into this complex organ called the brain.
You've been masturbating all over yourself, you've been shooting all over yourself, and your body has been changing and your world has been changing around all this. Now, a lot of people ask me, well, Jim, I'm understanding that. Why would I masturbate? Why would I shoot off? Why would I do that to myself? There's a real simple reason. Because your brain chemistry is off. You've got a physical illness called depression. You can't help it. You can't help it. And when you have a physical illness called depression, there's an electrochemical imbalance in your body that causes you to do this. And the funny thing is that you begin to experience a thing that we call automatic negative thinking. Now, I'm an old military man. I like acronyms. Automatic negative thoughts. You know what I like to call them? Ants. Automatic negative thoughts.
Oh.
You know what you've had inside of your head? A bunch of ants.
Simple.
Life has been tough from the beginning. Read the Old Testament. To call it depression is to trivialize it. That's the real trivialization, is to give it a medical diagnosis. This is the human condition, to struggle, to find meaning, to find love, to share, to give, to take, to face death. These are the things that religion struggles with, that psychology struggles with, and to call it a medical disorder is to trivialize it and to destroy the very fabric of what life is about.
Amen.
You wonder how something like that gets started, you know?
So I agree. I agree with some of their statements. I'm, you know, as far polarized apart as they are on the ends of the spectrum. Points here and there. All right, so finally, a voice of reason. Okay, so this is ironically another psychiatrist, Peter Kramer, and he wrote a classic book that was already, you know, like it was a bestseller at that time called Listening to Prozac. Now I forgot to mention that one of the really, not one of, the really fascinating thing about Prozac when it came out was, and this is what his book is about, is this, you already heard him say it, things like it, like, you know, like that people who not everybody, but the tendency was for people who were on Prozac in a couple of weeks, takes a couple of weeks for it to have its effect, it's not immediate. But you know, a couple of weeks later, they tended to say things like Jim Goodwin did, like, oh, this is how the world's supposed to look, or this is the real me. This drug had a personality, if you will, that we never saw before in any other kind of psychoactive substance. Nobody, we joke, you know, we joke about how we're not ourselves until we've had our morning caffeine, you know? But I never hear anybody say, like, you know, after a cup of coffee, like, okay, this is the real me. This is the real me. Nobody says that when they're drunk, when they're high on anything, when they're, you know, that, like, you never, like this, lots and lots of people said this kind of thing. And that's what he noticed and he wrote this book about. Okay, so let's hear what Peter Kramer has to say.
Across America, 11 million people have now tried Prozac, and most everyone's heard about it.
Still, it's a real good bet. The best is yet to come.
That's because a world away from Wenatchee in Providence, Rhode Island, in the late 1980s, psychiatrist Peter Kramer took note of the intriguing effect on his patients of a new antidepressant.
You think you've seen.
What struck me about Prozac forcefully when I started using it was the way in which patients used it to define the self. There were a couple of examples. One was the kind of patient who would say, I see this responds to the medicine, so this is biological happenstance about me, whereas the rest of me might still be autobiographical, carefully developed self. The other was the patient who would say, I feel like myself at last. This is my true self on the medicine. Whereas the patient might have been some other way, subtly different, for many years, and by implication would never have been herself had she not taken the medicine.
Kramer wrote a best-selling book about Prozac, a meditation on the drug and on his patients' transformations. Transformations that hadn't occurred with standard psychotherapy.
I'm one of the people that Peter Kramer wrote about in his book. The kind of depression that I would go through was literally being on the floor, unable to get up, you know, and feeling a terrible sense of dread every morning when I'd get up. You know, my whole body would feel, I would physically feel limp. So I saw psychologists on and off throughout my adolescence. But I never really felt that they did anything much for me, even though I went pretty regularly. And I never, even now I would say, I don't really know what psychologists ever did for me. And it wasn't really the only thing that I'd ever say really made a difference, that I can, without a doubt, say made a difference, was going on antidepressant drugs.
It would be wonderful to think that trauma that comes about through emotional injury can be healed through emotional understanding, insight, and so on. And that might be true. I think in many cases it is true. But there may be traumas that result in very stable, hard-to-change biological alterations in the way the brain functions. And it may be that the most direct and kindest way to respond to those traumas is through medication.
All right, I want to point out that there, you know, she obviously is a proponent of Prozac, and, you know, one of the typical kind of person that I mentioned, that Peter Kramer wrote about. These others are in the documentary, and they're clients of Jim Goodwin who absolutely sing his praises and say they wouldn't be alive without him. And so, you know, there are people that were, you know, that he obviously had a positive effect on a number of his patients, all right? I still think it's unethical to say that everybody has depression, you know, one therapy, one cure, one idea for everybody. There's another little side story in there about a woman who got assigned by the courts to help, you know, to help mediate a messy divorce and childcare. And the judge, for whatever reason, recommended that, you know, or required that she go to Jim Goodwin, and she went there, and first she walked in, and he said, you know, he said things like, you know, until you get on Prozac, I can't help you. I need to see the real you. And so she sues him, and spoiler alert, you know, he lost that suit, and he lost his license for a while. So anyway, there's a Prozac survivors group that comes to town to have a convention, and they're just anti-Prozac, and they think Prozac wrecked their lives and causes people to kill each other. And that's not true. That's extreme position. Prozac doesn't make, you know, people kill other people and so on, and there's been lots of court cases about that, and you know, the makers of Prozac and other drugs like that always win because depression makes people, you know, aggressive, it's suicidal or homicidal, not the medication. So there's a bunch of side issues in there. This is the woman that came in, and so that's a little side story. So she's obviously not happy with him. And then I can't remember if we'd covered this guy. Did I show you I don't think, this was a video. I'm gonna have to skip this in time. I hate to have to skip this. But anyway, earlier when we covered developmental psychology, I didn't show it in class, but I had a video that you should have watched on the side with Stephen Sumi doing, you know, some studies on highly reactive versus calm infant monkeys, all right? I can't go on to it now. I don't know. So anyway, I got to skip him. The documentary includes this. So you're introduced to Susanna Kaysen. She was the author of the book Girl Interrupted, which was made into a movie a long time ago. It was the breakout role for Angelina Jolie. Winona Ryder plays the Susanna Kaysen, you know, autobiographical character. Has anybody seen the movie? That's a psych one that psych students should see, Girl Interrupted. Has anybody read the book? The book's even better, of course. So, okay, all right, read the book. So she's in here, and she has a great perspective. So let me take the time to perspective on this.
Susanna Kaysen is the author of the book Girl Interrupted, about her 2-year stay at Harvard's McLean Hospital. Kaysen was here in the pre-Prozac 1960s, when McLean led the field in long-term psychotherapy.
Everything was therapy. It got to be a bit oppressive. But you felt safe. And since many of us were there because we did not feel safe in the world, that was helpful. And I think that's the main important thing that a psychiatric hospital can do for the patient, make the patient feel safe. And that's something that people don't talk about. But there needs to be a refuge for people who are out of their minds, so to speak, or not so to speak, who are actually out of their minds. There needs to be some place to go where you can be out of your mind and somebody's going to take care of you.
30 years ago, psychiatrists here thought that a supportive environment was the way to treat severe depression. Today, the wards at McLean are mostly empty because of medications like Prozac. But medications have their limitations, and not everyone is getting better.
Is he still actively suicidal?
There's a debate going on at McLean's about what's been lost, as financial pressures from health insurers cut back on traditional psychotherapy in favor of the new antidepressants.
He slept through the night, but he was disorganized, disoriented.
Prozac will be seen 30 years from now as being a reasonable and efficacious antidepressant. I think we'll laugh when we see ourselves thinking it's going to change our society or change ourselves. I think 30 years ago we made the mistake of saying that psychoanalysis and psychotherapy would change everything. Today we're making the mistake of saying Prozac will change everything. I think listening to Prozac is fine, but I think listening to people remains an essential part of the human experience, and I think 30 years from now, just as now, we'll realize that it remains essential, and we need to understand it as part of life, not just a medication.
I am still a great fan of psychotherapy, and I think one of the mistakes that may arise from the popularity of medicines like Prozac is an abandonment of psychotherapy. I think these are wonderful medicines that on the whole have the potential to decrease suffering, the new antidepressants in general. But I think they also can be used hypocritically by people trying to save money. Depression is something that insurance companies don't want to have to treat. They see it as a bottomless pit. They think there are no standards for determining when people are cured. They would just as soon do anything rather than treat mental illness.
Still true.
What I'm pressed to do is see people very briefly. And so what I'm left with is my bag of techniques and treatments, and I'm left with relatively few sessions. And if people say to a doctor, who is allowed 15 minutes, well, you got 15 minutes. The only thing you can do in 15 minutes, besides confuse the hell out of the patient if you really push it, is to offer them a medication, make sure it's fairly safe to give them the medication because they don't have allergies or medical problems, and give them a prescription, and out they run out the door they run.
I think when you're lonely and upset and confused and miserable, it's good to be able to talk to somebody who isn't frightened of you, who listens to you, and who tries to help you figure out what in the world is going on. I mean, that's pretty important. Whether there's a chemical that can change the way you feel or not, it's important to have human support and contact and respect. Those things trigger their own chemicals. I'm not interested in changing my chemistry. And I guess if it were to alter my personality, I would feel that I wasn't recognizable to myself. And perhaps I would say that great thing that Peter Kramer quotes some of his patients as saying, this is the real me. But I guess I don't want to find out if that's the real me. I'd like to think that this is the real me, the me I am, the me I have been all my life. I don't really want another me. I don't want to meet some other me. I'd rather be the me that I know. And if that involves accepting depression and despair, so be it. I think those things are a part of life.
Devil or angel.
This documentary also has a great soundtrack. All right, I told you about the survivors group. They have compelling stories. You know, this is a brother and sister who talk about coming home. Their father was admitted to a hospital for depression and released like 2 days later with a prescription for Prozac. And they went over to visit the parents, and they found that he had slaughtered his wife with a knife, had slit her, stabbed her to death and then stabbed himself to death. And so they're absolutely convinced, Prozac made him do that. This guy doesn't specify exactly what he did, but he says he has all kinds of problems and felony, and he got on Prozac and lost his mind. And anyway, so they have all, there's all kinds of compelling stories from far extremes in here. And so, the balance is always going to be somewhere in between. So one of the last people that we hear from, again, is going to be, hey, a research psychologist, all right? So she doesn't use this term, but she's going to talk about something that we sometimes call depressive realism. So I don't know how much you know about locus of control. This is an old psychological concept. There's scales you can take to determine your locus of control. It boils down to everything that happens in life can fall into two categories: things you have control over and things you don't. Some things you have control over, some things you don't. And this, the reality, the sad, maybe sad reality is that, if you literally add them up, the number of things that, the number of things that you don't have control over pretty greatly outnumber the things in life that you do have control over. Okay, so the irony is that mental wellness is accompanied by living the myth, if you will, that you've got control. Depression and anxiety is a feeling of lack of control. It's recognizing that you don't have control. And it's actually accurate. So we call it depressive realism. So the sad reality is that people with clinical depression are actually quite accurate at recognizing that they don't have control. And again, you know, the irony is that wellness is associated with this myth that you have control. So perpetuate the idea that you have control. That's actually healthy, okay? So she doesn't use that term depressive realism here, but she talks about similar concepts. So she has some wise things to say about the nature and role of depression that kind of blend in well with what Suzanne Kaysen just said, you know, that there's a value to periods of depression. There's not a value, there's not really a value to clinical depression. That's an illness, that's a pathology, but depression, moderate depression has a valid role to play in your life.
If we think about the whole depressive reaction as kind of a psychobiological response where one steps back and sort of focuses on oneself and what's going on and kind of reevaluates. In that sense, depression, at least in mild forms, may be a positive response. It may allow people to reassess what they're doing, try to think realistically about what they're doing, and possibly make some changes so that things might go better in the future.
That's life. That's what all the people say. You're riding high in April, shot down in May.
Happy Valley has not been so happy these days. The town has recently been rocked by a series of grisly murders and the discovery of a child sex ring.
That's life. Funny as it seems.
Based on the complaints of patients like Heidi Summers, Jim Goodwin is now being investigated by the state of Washington.
But I don't let it get me.
Listen to this gaslighting.
He is charged with incompetence and unethical behavior. A public hearing later this year will decide whether Jim Goodwin will lose his license to practice psychology.
I'm not in a conflict with anybody. I really am not. I think the world's in a conflict with me. I'm not the one who's jumping all over me. I'm not the one who's saying that I cram things down people's throat. I mean, I'm not the one that brought the lawyers into it. I'm not the one that got into the fight with all this. I'm just doing my job. I've been doing my job for years like this, but all of a sudden a bunch of people started dropping on me. And this is what's kind of come out of all of this. But I am like a typical person on Prozac. I'm not as aggressive as I used to be. I was a lot more aggressive. I was a Marine in the old days. Right now, I'm more of a pussycat.
That's life.
He lost his license. He got it back, though.
And I can't deny it.
Until he retired recently.
I thought of quitting, but my heart just won't buy it. And if it rains, come next July.
Eli Lilly recently announced that the Prozac consumption in Wenatchee is the same or even less than in the rest of the country.
And die. Yeah. That's life.
The clock just struck 12:10. I timed that rather well. Thank you. Best wishes on everything this coming week, and happy holidays and break after that. How many of you will be in S&P with me next semester? Any of you? All right, we'll see you there and then. Okay. Don't hesitate to contact me if you have any questions or want to chat or anything. Thanks.